Most people have at least heard of Chris Hansen and his Predator investigations.
You're Chris Hansen?
I am. Have you seen the show?
Unless you yourself are a kiddie fiddler, you've probably seen a few clips.
You know what? I don't want this cookie. I just want to get to the beach.
Come here, just 1 second.
Or maybe you even watched the investigations at the time they were first broadcast. Or maybe you've seen the investigations but decided to try and have sex with the minor anyway, just like Joshua Cologne, Jeremy Keister and Donald Morrison did.
Can I get you a glass of milk to go along with those cookies?
Sure.
Of the 300 or so predators, potential predators and suspected predators, not all of them have been given a spot in the Dateline light. Many were left unbroadcast, such as John Christopher Weaver, Andre Jackson, and Richard Brialt.
I'm gonna go home and find a gun, shoot myself in the head.
There are hundreds of pages worth of chat logs, the place where contact is first made for these guys, some slimier than others, and many have been left on Perverted Justice's website for archival purposes. However, not all footage and chat logs have been made publicly available, either for technicalities with the law, prevention from the suspects depicted on the show, or them simply being missing. Today, we will be exploring the unseen and lost footage and documents of Chris Hansen's Predator investigations. Why don't you have a seat and we'll talk about it? This is To Catch a Predator, the lost footage and chat logs. Although it came afterwards, Hansen vs. Predator has a minimal amount of lost material, so it'll be easier to start here. Hansen vs. Predator was a spiritual successor to the original To Catch a Predator series, funded through slightly dodgy means and broadcast on Crime Watch Daily in 2016, approximately 1 year after the actual sting took place in October-November 2015. There are many memorable characters, such as the narcissistic pizza predator Jeff Sokol.
Can I eat first?
Sure, go ahead.
The anxiety-fueled suspect Mike Manzi,
I'm Chris Hansen. No, you're not. Yes, I am. No, you're not. Yes, I am.
and the notably depressing, somewhat pathetic predator Vincent Ambrosio, who didn't even have his interview publicly shown until 2019, due to fears regarding his mental health and Hansen's inability to access the footage for some time.
I just wanna die. My life is miserable.
As bonus content for his now defunct website, Hansen would release the uncut interviews of Ambrosio, Sokol, Stephen Buchanan, John Dupee, Joshua Cologne, and Jesse Velez. As David Tiriolo and Michael Popovich never actually entered the Sting House, no uncut interviews of them even exist. Only 3 uncut interviews are unaccounted for. Some of the uncut police interviews and chat logs are also missing, with most of the found material being mirrors from Hansen's website or some of the community's own discoveries. Joey's TCaP Channel is mainly responsible for the recoveries. The still missing material is as follows. Michael Gentile. Michael Gentile, a former limo driver and now retired sex offender, is one of the most hated predators in the entirety of the Predator investigations. Although he looks like a grumpy old grandfather next door, he was far worse than that. One of the nastiest, most disgusting predators who seemed intent on producing child pornography in a hotel room with the decoy. Gentile entered the Sting House and slammed a window shut for the decoy, but for unknown reasons, as soon as he looked at her, he seemingly felt like something was wrong, so he turned to leave, claiming he'd just be outside. He also tells the decoy to hurry up, most likely under the impression that they'll be leaving and going to the hotel room instead of staying at the house. Chris attempted to get Gentile to return inside the house, but without even catching a glimpse of Hansen, Gentile left the house and was hurriedly arrested by Fairfield police. Because the confrontation was so short, it's unlikely an uncut version of this interview or subsequent arrest will ever be released. His chat log and phone calls have mostly been recovered via Joey's TCaP channel, although his uncut police interrogation is completely inaccessible beyond what was shown in the original HVP episode. This is presumably due to the personal information in the interview about Gentile's wife and daughter, who the detective mentions, berating Gentile heavily for his conduct and how it might affect them.
You don't mind if I'm frank with you, do you? Do you?
Okay.
Alright. You sit here and you tell us you're role playing, that you weren't here to see a 13-year-old. You think your wife's and your daughter gonna buy that that you just told us? I don't think so.
My name is David, and I am suffering from hair loss since I was 12 years old. I am 30 years old, and I feel and look like I'm 50.
David Tiriolo. David Tiriolo is one of the more intriguing cases. Consistently, throughout the chat, he apparently claimed that he didn't believe the decoy was actually a child, believing she was joking. He would repeat this reasoning in his police interrogation, even claiming the voice on the phone just sounded fake.
When she said, I said, you can't go to the casino.
He's like, yeah, I can't go to the casino. I'm 13. I'm like, that's like not a funny joke. She's like, well, I hang out with my dad's older friends all the time. And I'm like, they do like sexual? I'm like, does your dad pimp you out or something?
Aforementioned interrogation exists in full uncut form. Tariolo had apparently also seen Hansen's shows before, and was worried he'd be greeted by Chris in the Sting House.
I'm going to be that dude that walks in this house. I'm going to be that NBC guy. I don't want to be that some pedophile walks in with
Tariolo
Dunkin'
could
Donuts
possibly be
munchkins
one
and
of
a
the very
six-pack.
few suspects that was not an actual predator, but simply just a bit of an idiot. The judge and police seem to think so anyway, as he was only charged with attempted risk of injury to a minor, been recovered, with the only public record of it being the snippet seen in his original episode. Michael Popovich. Michael Popovich, a former Marine lieutenant colonel and still imprisoned sex offender, is easily up there with one of the worst. A short-tempered married man living in Florida, he treated the decoy like a sex pet throughout their chat, eventually calling the relationship off upon realizing that it was wrong to sext and organize statutory raping a 13-year-old. It was too late, however, and Popovich ended up with one of the stiffest sentences of all the men caught in Hansen's investigations. 20 years in prison, suspended after serving 10, followed by sex offender therapy and anger management classes after release. Because he never showed up to the Sting House, Popovich does not have an uncut interview. In spite of his infamy, however, Popovich's interrogation with police is completely inaccessible. Popovich's chat log has been partially recovered by Mike Pence, who uploaded a stream half a year ago reading it. However, he has yet to release the second part of the chat log, leaving it lost for now. Mike Thriller Manzi. Mike Manzi was the maths tutor who showed up to smoke a joint with a 13-year-old girl. He is another interesting case, mainly for the aftermath of his confrontation. Although his uncut police interrogation and his chat log are available, he claimed in an interview with Joey that some of the chat log, in which he was apparently trying to buy edibles from the decoy, is actually missing, and these sections were lost when his phone was seized and destroyed by police. Joey apparently made an agreement between Manzi and YouTuber Big Suarezzelli that if Swarz deleted his video on Mike and Mike gained access to the full untampered chat log that could fully vindicate him of any predatory implications, then Mike would do a live interview on YouTube. This never happened after Manzi started ghosting Joey, unfortunately, and the full chat has still never been released publicly as far as I know, if it even exists. Manzi's uncut interview has also never been released, but there might be a very good reason for this. According to a leaked conversation with a former Hansen vs. Predator editor, the head of security, Ron Knight, is apparently Mike Manzi's uncle. This is why Manzi is so frustrated, anxious, and confrontational when being told to leave through the garage, as he had actually been a religious watcher of Chris's show, and Manzi thought that Knight knew him better than that since he had known him since birth. Knight requested the episode exclude this part of the interview, and as such, no uncut confrontation formally exposing this relationship is known to exist. Stephen Buchanan. Stephen Buchanan was one of the most potentially dangerous predators ever caught in a Hansen sting. One of many soldiers caught in the stings, he refused to enter the house and instead tried to lure the supposed child out into his car, as well as bringing an apparent kill kit, which was locked in the trunk. Because of this, it is strongly believed by many that Buchanan was intending on killing the decoy, and possibly even himself in a double murder-suicide. So, just a quick little update. At the time I was researching for this video, the Lost Media Wiki had Hansen vs. Predator's Stephen Buchanan chat log listed as lost. Turns out it does exist. It was uploaded by a YouTuber called Sunset Liquid in 2021, so his chat log has been found. And the phone calls he had with the decoy have also been fully recovered. The TCaP Channel also uploaded the full chat log well over 5 years ago, so, you know, I think someone needs to update this wiki a bit more. Although his memorably disturbing interview has been fully released uncut, his uncut police interrogation only exists in snippets taken from his uncut interview and the original broadcast episode. Honestly, Stephen's impression on the audience, Hansen, and the decoy was more than enough, and perhaps some of the stuff he talks about in the interrogation room that hasn't been recovered isn't stuff we'd like to hear more of, but it would be interesting to see.
Hello?
Hi.
Hey.
I'm here, I believe.
Okay, did you park by the Jeep?
What color Jeep is it?
Black.
Jesse Velez. Jesse Velez is pretty well accounted for, mostly well known for the awful acting of the male decoy who looks like a grown man in his segment
Me, my mommy, and my daddy.
Velez is now a free man. His chat log is genuinely disturbing, and his Uncut Interview is, in my opinion, one of the most arrogant and frustrating, if not for the memes, to watch.
Ooh, it's right.
With his constant denial and waffling coming across as beyond obnoxious. His Uncut Police Interview is, again, only partly accessible, via the original episode and the Uncut Interview release, where he cries like a little baby. I guess from now on in life, it'll just be Velez. Him, his doggies, and his fiancée. Charles Lawrence. Now forever known as Chris's friend from public transport, Lawrence did not stay in the Sting house for very long. As soon as the decoy asked if he remembered to bring the thing he talked about, a gay porn tape, Lawrence claimed he left it in the car and prepared to go and get it, which prompted Hansen to come out prematurely, thus saving Lawrence from the male decoy's horrible acting.
No, Chris.
Lawrence, in shock, immediately attempted to flee, with Hansen failing to convince Lawrence to stay for an interview to explain himself. Because the exchange was so brief, no uncut footage has ever been released. His chat log and uncut police interrogation are fully available. This was not the original end of Hansen vs. Predator. Hansen had set up a second sting in the DeKalb County, Georgia for this series, which was ultimately never finished and remains unreleased. The sting took a different approach, focusing on men soliciting underage prostitutes. Only two suspects, Jermaine Howard and Federico Mendez, were confronted in a hotel room and charged with sex trafficking. In Howard's case, much like a couple other well-known predators, he entered the hotel room naked. As of 2023, no footage or chat logs from these confrontations have ever been released, and remain largely forgotten about and enigmatic in the TCaP community.
My fraternity brother's famous check.
I don't have my DNA. Sorry, it's only 13. My mom keeps out her purse.